Welcome to Hell in a Hallway with your host, Billy. Um, I really want to be able to say this has been a tough couple of weeks, a really tough week, really tough year, right? I bet we can all say that. But I've been working really hard trying to keep it together, right? Trying to keep myself together amidst just not just the pandemic, amidst the idea about the constant reminder about the color of my skin and what it actually means and what it actually doesn't mean for people. And then on top of that, all the unemployment that's been going on, all of the idea, the social isolation, the increase in anxiety, the increase in depression, and all this stuff. And I have been trying to work really hard to keep myself afloat. I try not to get into the news a whole lot and all the political stuff that's been happening because it weighs heavy. It tethers itself to me. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But then the recent death of Black Panther star Chadwick Boseman, if I'm messing up his name, I apologize to him and his family and anybody who's listening who's offended by that. But I I couldn't believe how emotionally overwhelmed I was by it. Like I actually started crying. I'm sitting and I'm thinking about him and I'm upset because it felt so personal to me. Why did it feel personal to me? What's happening that this man who has no relation to me, no friendship or just nothing, and I had to sit back and say, why did his death have such an impact? Um, I don't think it's just the death. I think the death is like the icing. Like this is it. This is too much. You know, um, it was kind of what he symbolized, right? In a young black man, it's what he was symbolic of. You know, and what he's symbolic of, just the idea that he called himself gifted, black, and talented, and that we can rise above. That movie, Black Panther, was so powerful because it was a light that we are rarely shown in, right, as people. And not just that movie, he did a whole host of movies and things that he's given us, but that particular one was so powerful. So one thing I kind of thought about when it comes to him and what's the difference between him and us, right? Between him and me and you. What's the difference? Um, the difference is that he was plugged into his source. That's the difference. So think about a light bulb, right? A 60 watt light bulb and a 100-watt light bulb looks exactly the same. They look the same until they're plugged into the source. Once they plugged into an energy source, there is a difference between the two. One shines brighter than the other, right? Which are you? Are you shining as bright as you absolutely can? What are you doing in order to do that? Are you making use not just of your time? We've been talking about that a lot through this pandemic of what we're doing with our time and how we're maybe anesthetizing ourselves with videos, with Facebook, with Instagram, with whatever social media or whatever game that we're playing, just trying to make it through another mundane day. No. What are you doing to take potential of what's inside of you? How are you beaming as your 100-watt self? Are you plugged into the source? What's the source for you? What does that look like for you? See, when I learned that not only did this man give us Black Panther, but he gave us all these other movies while battling cancer, and on top of that, still had time to give to other kids who were ill. He wasn't sitting in his misery. At least that's not the impression I get, right? Because I don't know him. But he was still given to the world despite what was going on with him. Most of the times we're focused out of inwardly. We're looking at what's happening with us and we can only see ourselves. We can't see anything else. Sometimes a path to wellness is outside. And that doesn't mean you don't pay attention to what's happening to you, because of course I want you to pay attention. But what that does mean is that maybe we need to do something outside ourselves. Maybe we need to give to somebody else. The principle of altruism is a real principle, and it really does work. That means we are pouring into someone else. Now, I'm not at all suggesting that you pour to the point that you have absolutely nothing. No, but that's why you're plugged into your source, right? A 100-watt bulb is nothing but glass until it's plugged in. So you plug in a 100-watt bulb and a 60-watt bulb, you can tell there's a difference because they both got access to their source. Do you have access to your source? What is that for you? See, if you're living from the inside out, right? You're living from a place where you're kind of feeding your spirit, right? Which feeds your emotional, psychological space. It helps you navigate through your senses to the world, right? It allows you that. But if you're living from the outside in, you have your senses, the world telling your psychological, social, so your psychological, emotional space how to feel, which disrupts your spirit. So it's so much better to live from the inside out versus the outside in. So you're living from the inside out, you're feeding, the source is feeding your spirit, stabilizing you. See, I like to use the analogy of the waterbed, right? And if those who are my age probably know the waterbed from the 80s, they were, oh my God, they were terrible for your back. I don't even know how those things were even legal to have. But they had complete motion transfer. You sit in it and it was waving from left to right and right to left. I mean, it was nothing stable about it. It was highly impacted by its external environment. But then you remember those beds from the late 90s, 2000s, I think that was the year, Tempur-Pedics. And remember the slogan where they would put the glass of wine at the edge of the bed, right? And the person would jump on one side and they would go, see, no motion transfer. And that's right, because why wouldn't it transfer? Because of what it was made of. See, it was made of material that it did not matter what was happening outside of it. It wasn't impacted. And that's how we should be. We need to feed our internal man so our external man doesn't get disrupted by the environment. That man was still a servant despite his ailing, dying body. He gave us his gifts. He left this world in a finished state. Are you finishing? Or is that dash that's between your birth date and your death date, is it unfinished? Will it be unfinished? What do you have to give to the world still? Give it. Give it. It does no good living within you. But plug into the source. Live from the inside out. Demonstrate your wattage because you got it. Let the world see how bright you are. I want to thank you for tuning in to this short Hell in the Hallway. I want to be able to see you again. Please tune in to YouTube under Therapy with Billy J, Hell in the Hallway. I look forward to seeing you soon. I'll see you next time. Love you guys.